You won't believe what happened at Ike Turner's funeral. In a moment that no one saw coming, his wife, Audrey Madison, stepped onto the stage, and what followed left the entire room in stunned silence and tears. Her voice trembled with emotion, her words soaked in love and truth, cutting through the air like music itself. This wasn't just a farewell, it was a moment that peeled back the layers of a complicated life and revealed the heart of the man behind the legend. As she spoke, you could feel the room shift from sorrow to reflection, from judgment to understanding. It was a breathtaking tribute, one that reminded everyone not just of Ike's fame, but of his humanity, his struggles, and his soul. But the question lingering in every heart was this the most emotional goodbye of the year, or a final message that finally told the world who Ike Turner truly was? Stay with me, because what unfolded inside that chapel was more than a farewell, it was a story of love, legacy, and redemption told in front of the world. We're taking you inside the ceremony, where every word carried the weight of memory and every tear spoke louder than applause. You'll hear about the emotional speeches that honored a man whose music shaped generations, the crowd's heartfelt reaction as they rose to their feet in unity, and the unforgettable words Audrey Madison shared, words that captured not just who Ike Turner was, but who he became in his final years. By the end, you'll understand why fans are calling this one of the most moving tributes ever given to a music legend, a moment so powerful it redefined how the world remembers Ike Turner. This wasn't just a funeral. It was a final encore, a closing note that left everyone speechless. Before we step into that emotional farewell, we have to pause and remember the man at the heart of it all, Ike Turner. He wasn't just another musician. He was a pioneer, a force who helped shape the very foundation of rock and roll. Long before the spotlight turned turbulent, Ike's talent was undeniable, a gifted band leader, songwriter, and visionary who pushed the boundaries of sound and stage presence. His fingerprints are on some of the most influential music in history, inspiring artists across generations. But his life wasn't without darkness. For every triumph came a controversy, for every note of brilliance, a shadow of pain. Ike's story was one of extraordinary highs and deep, public lows, a man celebrated for his genius and condemned for his flaws. The headlines often drowned out the harmonies. But beneath the chaos lived a man wrestling with demons, striving for redemption, and yearning to be understood beyond the tabloid version of his name. And yet, one truth remains unshakable: Ike Turner's influence on music is eternal. His work helped launch a new era of sound. His energy on stage ignited audiences. His legacy, though complex, cannot be erased. That's the man Audrey Madison came to honor, not just the legend, not just the controversy, but the human being behind the myth. The funeral was a scene of quiet reverence, a moment suspended in time. The chapel was filled with family, close friends, and icons from the music world, each carrying their own memories of Ike Turner, the man who changed the rhythm of their generation. The air was heavy with both sorrow and gratitude, as soft music played gently in the background, a delicate blend of blues and soul, echoing the very heartbeat of Ike's legacy. On the screens around the room, photos from every chapter of his life flickered slowly, from his early days as a young dreamer with a guitar in hand, to the electrifying moments under stage lights, and the rare, intimate glimpses of quiet reflection later in life. Each image told a story, not of perfection, but of passion, of a man who lived loudly, created fearlessly, and battled his own storms in the public eye. As tributes began, voices wove stories of triumph and turbulence. Artists spoke of his genius, friends recalled his humor, and family shared the tenderness behind the legend. Yet amid the emotion, everyone waited for one voice: Audrey Madison, the woman who stood beside him in his final years. When she rose from her seat, the room stilled. All eyes turned toward her as she walked to the podium, poised yet trembling, her steps carrying the weight of love and loss. And as she placed her hand on the microphone, a hush fell across the chapel. Not a whisper, not a shuffle, just silence, the kind that comes when everyone knows they are about to witness something unforgettable. When Audrey Madison began to speak, her voice carried a tremor that told a story before the words even formed. What followed was not a rehearsed eulogy, not a carefully polished statement, but a raw, heartfelt tribute that came straight from the soul. You could hear the weight of years in every syllable, the laughter they shared, the battles they fought, and the love that endured through it all. She spoke not of the headlines, but of the man behind them, the dreamer who rose from humble beginnings, chasing melodies that would one day define an era, the artist who poured his pain into rhythm and his joy into song, the husband who, in his later years, searched earnestly for peace and forgiveness. She told stories few had heard, quiet moments when Ike would sit by the piano long after midnight, lost in music that was as much confession as creation. She remembered how he'd talk about redemption, about wanting to be remembered not just for the chaos, but for the courage to rise from it. Audrey painted a picture of a man who was deeply flawed, yes, but also deeply human. A man who had stumbled, who had been judged, but who never stopped striving to make things right. He wasn't perfect, she admitted softly, but he was real, and he was mine. Her words wrapped the room in emotion, weaving love through regret, truth through tenderness. And in that moment, even those who had come with conflicted hearts found themselves nodding, understanding. She didn't ask for sympathy or rewrite history. She simply gave Ike Turner his humanity back. By the time she finished, there wasn't a dry eye left. Her tribute wasn't just a farewell, it was a final gift. A testimony of love that transcended pain. Reminding the world that even the most complicated souls deserve to be remembered with compassion. As Audrey's final words hung in the air, a wave of silence swept through the room, the kind that only follows something truly profound. Then, slowly, quietly at first, the sound of soft sobs began to ripple across the chapel. Tears flowed, freely, not just from family and friends, but even from those who had once judged Ike harshly. For a moment, the divisions, the debates, the headlines, the pain of the past, all faded. What remained was raw humanity. When Audrey stepped back from the podium, clutching a folded handkerchief, the entire crowd rose to their feet in a standing ovation, not out of obligation, but out of deep emotion. It was a moment of rare unity, a collective release of everything unsaid. You could feel it, the forgiveness in the air, the gratitude for the music, the recognition of a life that had touched so many in so many ways. Some whispered prayers, others closed their eyes, swaying softly as if still hearing the echo of Ike's songs. The chapel, once heavy with grief, now seemed filled with light, a mixture of sorrow and peace. It wasn't just a farewell to a legend. It was a spiritual release of judgment, of regret, of pain. In that standing ovation, Ike Turner was not the controversy, not the caricature. He was simply a man remembered, loved, and finally understood. Audrey's tribute had done what no article, no documentary, no headline ever could. It had brought healing. Ike Turner's story will always be one of contrasts, a tale woven from threads of genius and grief, triumph and turmoil. He was a man who helped shape the sound of modern music, yet spent decades fighting the weight of his past. To some, he was a pioneer, a visionary, who helped ignite the birth of rock and roll. To others, he was a figure marked by mistakes and pain. But on this day, through Audrey Madison's words, the world was reminded of something far deeper. That behind every legend is a human soul struggling, growing, and yearning for redemption. Audrey's tribute peeled away the noise and controversy, revealing a man who was more than the headlines, a man who dreamed, created, loved, and sought peace in the final chapters of his life. Her voice didn't erase his flaws, but it placed them in context, alongside the beauty of his art and the sincerity of his efforts to heal. Through her honesty, she gave the world permission to see Ike fully, not as a myth or a mistake, but as a man whose story, though imperfect, was still worthy of understanding. For the family, her words were closure, a final, loving chapter in a story long defined by public scrutiny. For fans, it was a moment of clarity, a chance to reflect not only on Ike's music but on the human cost of fame and the possibility of forgiveness. And for those who had once turned away from his name, Audrey's tribute reopened the door to empathy, reminding everyone that even the most complicated lives can end with grace. In that chapel, surrounded by tears and applause, Ike Turner's legacy found a new balance, one that embraced both the light and the shadows. And finally let his music and his humanity play on. Now it's your turn to share your heart, because this moment isn't just about saying goodbye to Ike Turner. It's about reflecting on what his story means to all of us. Did Audrey Madison's powerful tribute change the way you see Ike Turner? After hearing her speak with such honesty and love, do you find yourself seeing beyond the headlines, seeing the man, the artist, and the soul who shaped a generation of music? Sometimes, a single moment of truth can transform years of perception. And this may have been one of those moments. Do you believe that love and forgiveness can rewrite a complicated legacy? That even a life marked by mistakes can still end in grace and redemption, when seen through the eyes of someone who truly knew the heart behind the fame? Audrey's words reminded us that healing doesn't erase the past, it reframes it. And now, we want to hear from you, the fans, the listeners, the ones who grew up with Ike's music. What's your favorite memory of Ike Turner? Which of his songs still moves you? Still echoes through your life today? Drop your thoughts and memories in the comments below. Tell us how his music touched you, how his story inspires you, or even how it challenges you to think differently about art, legacy, and forgiveness. If Audrey Madison's heartfelt tribute moved you the way it moved everyone in that room, take a moment now to honor Ike Turner's memory. Hit that like button and let the world see how many hearts his story still touches today. We'd love to hear your voice in this conversation, so share your thoughts in the comments below. Tell us what her words meant to you, how you remember Ike Turner, and what song or memory stays closest to your heart. Every comment helps keep his legacy alive, not just as a musician, but as a man whose life carried lessons about love, redemption, and the power of forgiveness. And if you want to continue celebrating the legends who shaped music and culture, stories filled with emotion, truth, and inspiration, make sure to subscribe and turn on the notification bell. There are so many powerful stories still to tell, and you won't want to miss a single one, because even in farewell, Ike Turner's story is far from over. His voice still echoes through every chord he played, his rhythm still beats inside the heart of modern music, and his legacy lives on, not just in the records he left behind, but in the memories of those who truly knew him. Through Audrey Madison's love-and words, the world was reminded that a legacy is more than fame or fault. It's the sum of a life lived boldly, with all its triumphs and lessons. And this is only one story in a world full of legends, each with untold moments of truth, love, and redemption waiting to be shared. So, stay tuned, because we'll continue to bring you the powerful, emotional stories behind the icons who shaped history, the artists who gave us music that still moves our souls. Ike's final note may have been played, but his song and his story will play on forever.